Welcome to the Extreme Underground, the show where I take a look at some of the most disturbing and controversial films in the world of cinema. Today we'll be talking about Cannibal Ferox. Directed by Umberto Lenzi, starring Giovanni Lombardo Radis, Lorraine Dessel, Danilo Mattei, Zora Kurova, and Robert Kerman. Cannibal Ferox is one of the more known cannibal films to come out of this Italian trend of cannibal movies. Of course, Cannibal Holocaust is number one. Umberto Lenzi followed that up with Eaten Alive, but Cannibal Ferox is one of those movies that everybody says is super controversial. Like, it was banned in 31 countries. It has shocking scenes and animal cruelty and stuff that would come with like the territory of making cannibal films at the time. And even to this day, if you watch it on Shudder, there's a big warning at the beginning that says, look, this movie is really extreme and we're happy to bring it to you. So it was used as a big marketing ploy back in the day, and even till now in 2021, the film is still being promoted as a very controversial film, hence why it's on this channel. Now, I don't know a ton of the background of this movie aside from what I've said, so we're just gonna step through the movie in the breakdown. This movie kicks off with a shot of New York City. We've got this guy walking around, narrowly avoiding some roller skating kids in the streets, and he's making his way to his drug dealer's house. And there's two mobsters also looking for Mike. He screwed them over and they want their money.
Mike? Just stay put, shitface.
These mobsters just think this guy is dicking around. They continuously call him shitface for some reason.
Anything about it? Come on, shitface, where is he?
And then eventually they just shoot him and they leave him for dead. We see some detectives show up on the scene, one of which is Robert Kerman, which most people would know from Cannibal Holocaust, but was also in the Eaten Alive by Umberto Lenzi. Now we're going to Colombia, where we have Rudy, Gloria, and Pat. Rudy and Gloria are brother and sister, and they're either at or about to go to Monkey Island. One of my favorite games, by the way, back in the day. Our trio explain that they are looking for a specific village, and they're warned about the wildlife. Meanwhile, Pat is asking about having a shower. So this weird, creepy guard guy is basically like, hey, yeah, I have a shower. Come back to my place.
What did he say?
He wants to take you home.
While Gloria and Rudy are talking about where they actually want to go, Pat takes him up on the offer, shockingly. As Rudy and Gloria are driving their Jeep onto a ferry or a boat, Pat shows up late saying bye to Juanito, and the crew is off.
Ciao, mamacita.
We get some exposition from Gloria. She's writing a paper or a thesis, and she's trying to prove cannibalism doesn't exist.
According to Gloria, man eat man is bullshit.
We also find out that Pat is just a friend, and she's only come on this trip because she wants Rudy to take some pictures of her in these exotic locations. As they continue their travels, a big ass butterfly flies in. The man on the boat grabs it and he eats the center. He explains that if you don't do that, then it's bad luck. The gang gets into their Jeep and they're going to the village. They've brought this little animal.
We stake him out and the snakes will go for him instead of us. The law of the jungle.
While the gang is driving, they see a massive iguana and they swerve and the Jeep gets stuck in some mud. All while that poor little animal is hanging like a noose off the side. This looked like it was an accident, but it's the least of this thing's problems. After they get unstuck from the mud, they get stuck again. Their car's kind of broke, so they're making their way through the forest and they see this guy just sitting there eating a bunch of grubs. The crew finds a place, they spend the night, and they're woken up to this massive anaconda, like the biggest snake I've ever seen, approaching their little rodent thing. And this is where we get our first animal cruelty scene. They did bring that animal from somewhere and purposely tie it to a stake and let this snake wrap itself around him, squeeze the life out of it, and start eating it. Right after this, we see some villagers that have been hit by a big spike ball, and then out of nowhere, we meet Joe and Mike. This was the Mike that owes these mobsters money, and
we've been looking for your friend Mike for a month.
And we find out that he was down here because he was picking up some cocaine. Before telling them they were put in a cage, they met a guy named Portuguese that was helping them out, and the local villagers took him, tied him up, cut off his dick, and ate it.
They ate his genitals.
No, Mike, damn it, stop it!
Day falls to night, and they're hanging out at a campfire, and Pat and Mike are immediately a thing. They wake up and Gloria is missing, so they split up to find her, and to show how dangerous the Green Inferno is, photos, it shows like a leopard or a jaguar or something eat a monkey, which is kind of gross. Well, the team is split up. Joe and Rudy find the village that Mike was just talking about. They see the man tied to the tree who must be Portuguese, while Mike and Pat find a big hole and Gloria is in it alongside a pig that was also trapped. Mike jumps in and stabs the pig and guts it, and they get out of the hole and go on with their day. Thankfully, Gloria does mention, like,
did you have to torture it that way?
And I completely agree. Mike's just a dickhead. The crew meets up at the village and they're taking some pictures, and Rudy starts to suspect that Mike is talking shit because he can see the way that the villagers are like scared of him. Joe, who had been apparently stabbed by one of the villagers, now passes out, and Gloria says like, hey Mike, we're not going anywhere. We're gonna wait here and make sure that Joe's good. And Mike gets pissed off. He threatens the group.
Listen, twat. I could probably make it on my own. But I like you kids.
In typical cannibal movie fashion, we cut to some random animals eating each other, and this time we have an iguana eating a snake, which is just enough time for Mike to get busy with Pat. They're just laying there naked, doing some coke. Mike, being the suave gentleman that he is, calls her
A hot pussy little whore.
and she seems to not be offended and potentially flattered by it. Afterwards, they go down to the riverbank and they see two teens catching a turtle, and Mike is in like alpha power mode, and he goes to the girl, he rips off her shirt, and he tries to get Pat to kill her, but the boy yells and the girl runs off. Mike takes out his gun and just shoots her. But Rudy isn't having any of this. He hears that, he sees what just happened, and he runs up and kicks the shit out of Mike.
Get off my case, motherfucker.
And now we have another one of those scenes with the animals. We've got the turtle that they found at the river. The villagers are now chopping off its head and all of its limbs and then cooking it over a fire. While the crew is still waiting for Joe to heal up, he's at least come to his senses, and he starts to tell the story of what actually happened, and he just basically puts everything out on the table. Portuguese was actually some local man that they found, and he knew about a place with emeralds. Mike owes all this money, and he thought, hey, this is just an easier, faster way for me to get these mobsters off my back. So Portuguese, even though he wasn't Portuguese, he was one of the local villagers here, I'll still call him Portuguese. So Portuguese brings him back to this village.
Man, we must have sifted through 100 tons of that silt.
And they're looking for emeralds in the river, and eventually Mike gets fed up. He got high and he attacks them. Mike ties Portuguese to the tree. Mike kills another villager, and then he ends up stabbing Portuguese eye out, which is actually a pretty gruesome scene. This is one of those scenes that people would find pretty disturbing. And then Mike cuts his dick off.
But he didn't die till the next morning. God, how he suffered.
Mike then takes a villager as a hostage to get him and Joe out of the jungle.
But before Mike got him, he shoved his pig sticker into me. And you showed up right after that.
As Joe is breaking this all down, Gloria and Rudy find out that Mike and Pat have run off with all of their supplies. And then it cuts back to New York City, where we see the detectives questioning Mike's roommate. And then we go back to the village, and unfortunately, Joe dies.
We know nothing about him. Not even his last name.
Rudy and Gloria walk out of their little hut and they see a papaya on a stick, and Gloria says they are cursed. All the villagers are gone, but when they come back, they grab Joe's body, they drag him out of the hut, and they cut him open and start eating him. Obviously, Rudy and Gloria see this and they just run. Villagers start popping up out of nowhere, and we find out they also already have Pat and Mike. They tie Mike to a pole, just like he did with Portuguese, and they put the rest of the people in a bamboo cage down by the river. And in the biggest redemption moment of this film, Mike gets his dick cut off and eaten in front of him by a cannibal. And somehow it was only this moment where Gloria has an inner monologue go, wait a second, these guys are cannibals, even though they just watched the villagers eat Joe. They sat there and just ate him. But it was this moment that triggered her and was like, oh shit, I guess my thesis isn't gonna make sense anymore. And then we cut back to New York City. We've got the two mobsters that we met before. They found Mike's roommate and they're questioning her.
Come on, bitch. Where's your stud?
Before the cops show up and take her in for questioning. It's revealed now that it's not Mike's roommate, but she's actually his girlfriend, and Mike was even a bigger dick than we thought because she was forced to get an abortion just before he fled to the Amazon. The detectives now have some information. They know where Mike went, so they're trying to piece things together, and Mike's girlfriend just runs out of the police station. While this was happening, the villagers were actually taking our crew down the river, and Rudy just jumps up and runs, abandoning his sister, and he's just running for his life. He trips, he falls falls, he breaks his leg, and then he goes to hide in the river, and piranhas start to attack the open wound. And so he's forced out of the river. They blow dart him and carry him back to town with the others. They put Dickless Mike in a little hole. They put the two girls in one of those like mud huts that you see on those like Amazon YouTube channels, but less luxurious. And then Gloria's just sitting there talking with Pat like,
Do you realize it's us, the so-called civilized people, who are responsible for their cruelty?
There's some kind of change in morality. She starts to realize what's happening and that they are the cause of it. And the villagers lower down some meat for them to eat, and Gloria decides it's the perfect time to just start singing to lift their spirits.
And I know you'll be taking the sunshine.
This is a really awkward moment. I don't know why they just started singing, but they did, and the whole village could hear them. Mike's girlfriend is actually traveling now to the Amazon herself. I keep calling her Mike's girlfriend because I don't think her name is actually mentioned.
Janitor says her name is Myrna Sten. She's a tour guide, out of town at the moment.
Then it cuts back to the village for some more cannibal exploitation, where they're cutting open a baby alligator and proceed to eat it raw. Dickless Mike digs himself out of this hole. He ends up killing a dude. He takes his machete, and he sees that there was another villager trying to help the girls out, which was the boy from the river with the turtle. He's trying to hoist them up with a rope, and Mike shows up and cuts the rope, basically saying, fuck you guys, I'm out, and then he books it. Mike then sees the plane that his girlfriend is in, and he's like so happy. And then just like that, a bunch of villagers pop up, they strap him down, and cut his hand off. He thought he was in the clear, but absolutely not. The girls are then taken out of the hole, they rip Pat's shirt off, and they mark her breasts with like a stick with blood on it, so they know where to put the hooks in so they can hang her by her titties. This was probably the most realistic thing, other than the actual guts and stuff that we saw. The plane now arrives, and the villagers just pop up and say like, look what we found. It's the items of Mike. And the villagers just say like 4 others were also here, so 5 in total. They were eaten by crocodiles, and that's just a clean-cut story for the villagers. They've got their alibi like, look, yes, we met people, but they were eaten. And now Pat is hung up by her breasts, and it looks really, really painful. I don't know how they did this without hurting her, personally. She ends up just hanging there and dies. And to finish Mike off, they strap his head into this table where his head is just poking through the top, and they chop it with a machete, and the villagers just take their turn having a brain buffet, just walking by, grabbing some brains and moving on. Now Gloria is the only remaining American. The boy from the river recognized how nice she was and cuts her down and allows her to escape. He sneaks her away, and as they're running, he accidentally trips a trap which impales him, and Gloria is forced to go on by herself. She does take his knife and contemplates suicide, but Rudy's voice is in her head, kind of being the guiding light, saying, no, you got this, sis. Go get it. Like, get out of here. Then it cuts to a random boat where an exotic pet salesman or something, he's captured some monkeys that he plans to sell back in America, and he can hear the screams of Gloria in the forest. So they actually go, they get off, and they rescue her while she's crawling through mud. Probably wouldn't have lived if these guys didn't show up. Fast forward 3 months, we're at the university or the college that Gloria was attending, and she receives an award and honors for her thesis on cannibalism. We find out that she was selfish, she didn't want to share any of this information, and she's just saying, I didn't find any cannibals in the Amazon. All of our friends just died from an accident on a capsized boat in the river, and I was just lucky enough to get out. She refused to tell her story, but she accepts the award, and she realizes she's dead inside. And Lindsay does a great job showing this as it slowly zooms into her face and then freeze frames on it as the credits roll. Cannibal Ferox is a pretty good time. Of course, people are going to be thrown off by the animal cruelty, but you can get versions where that's all removed, and it doesn't add anything to the movie anyway, so it was only in there for shock to be controversial. The characters are great. We got Mike, this complete asshole who you just can't wait to see die, and the way that they slowly dismantle him, emasculating him by cutting off his dick, slicing off his hands so he's useless, and so forth. It's nice to see. The progression of the other characters is also pretty solid, and the whole idea that Gloria kind of changes her ways because she was like, I'm gonna prove that cannibalism doesn't exist. She sees it firsthand, and she's like, but I want this award. You know, she's made her decision, and she also realizes that she played a part as an American culture going to exotic places where she may not belong. That potentially has helped cause this issue. The pacing of the film, because it jumps from the Amazon to the detectives and back and forth. It really keeps things flowing pretty naturally. I think the pacing in this is a little bit better than Cannibal Holocaust, but I think I like Cannibal Holocaust a little bit more. But if you haven't seen Cannibal Ferox, I would recommend it. So I'm gonna give this 3 American Express ads out of 5. As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, links are in the description. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with everything on the Extreme Underground.